Hi friends, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you guys how to draft out a corset pattern without a yoke. It is very simple, and if this is what you're interested in learning, please keep on watching. And if you are yet to hit on the subscribe button, please subscribe and let's get started. So guys, here is my pattern paper. I have two pattern paper initially, but I've gone ahead to remove one. That would be for the back, and we are going to start drafting with the front. Okay, so I have my pattern paper on top the table. First of all, I'm going to, from the top of my pattern paper, come down by 1 inch, which is going to serve as the top line, okay, which is starting line. Now guys, after that, I'm going to connect this line horizontally, as you can see me doing like this. And then after that, on this point, I'm going to place my tape, but I'm going to take away 6 inches, okay, just like I'm drafting out an off shoulder dress. I don't know if you understand, since we are not going to make use of a yoke. So I took away 6 inches and marked down to the bust point 10 inches, under bust point 14 inches, waistline 17 inches, and then my blouse length 26 inches. So I'm going to square up my lines, as you can see me doing like this. And then after that, I'm going to label my lines. So I have the top line, I have the bust points, I have the under bust points, I have the waistline, and then I have the blouse length, which is the hip length. Okay, so guys, after this, on the top line, I'm going to divide my shoulder into two and then mark it out. So my shoulder is 15. I'm going to mark in 8 inches because I need half an inch for sewing allowance. Now I'm going to remove that same 6 inches again and then mark down to my armhole divided by 2. So I'm using half of my armhole as my chest line. Remember, you can do this, or you can also make use of your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Okay, or you go ahead and do what I just did, your armhole divided by 2 to get your chest line. So as you can see, I have my chest line. Now on the bust point line, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. This is how deep I want the neckline. Okay, now after that, I'm going to, from the center fold, come in by half an inch. Now remember that our pattern is meant to be on fold, but because this is a pattern, we have a single paper right here. But when we are cutting on fabric, it is going to be on folds. This means that this half an inch is going to become 1 inch. Do you guys understand? Now after this, next thing I want to do is, on the bust point line, I'm going to divide my nipple to nipple measurement by 2, and my nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. So divide it by 2, I'll have 4. I'm going to mark it on the bust point line, on the under bust line, on the waistline, and then down to the hip line. Okay, so after I marked from bust points to the waistline, I connected it and then still marked in my 4 inches on the hip line and connected them together. Now guys, once you are done with this, we are going to take away our darts. So I'm going to use that of 2 inches, but I'm going to share it equally on both sides, as you can see me doing like this. So I did that on the under bust point down to the hip length, and then use my straight ruler to connect all these points together. Now once I'm done with this, I'm going to, from the bust point, come down by 1 inch. Okay, and then I'm going to connect it into the under bust point using my curve, just like this. And then once I'm done with this, I'm going to measure the distance between the bust point and the under busts. Okay, so what I have there is 4. Let's assume you don't want your cleavage to expose, you go ahead and use this 4, but for mine, I don't want it to cover that much, so I made use of 2 inches. Can you see? Now guys, I'm going to tighten my over busts, and I'm going to use same 2 inches for that. So I shared it equally on both sides as well, and then connected it into the bust point line. Now after this, I'll go ahead and connect my sweetheart neckline. Okay, so I'm going to use my curve ruler to do that. So as you can see, this is the way I'm going to connect it, and from there I'm going to, from the chest line, go down by half an inch for my new armhole. This is because the corset is a tube and you want your corset to relax properly well on the underarm. All right, and I'm going to connect the side that leg into this new armhole, as you can see. Now guys, from here we are going to start creating our corset cup, and to create this cup we are going to use the nipple to nipple measurement of 4 inches. Now, because our boobs are fuller by the side, we are going to add half an inch to the 4 inches and then mark it out on the side front, okay, just like this. Then connect it with a curve into the under bust point and then straight up to the half an inch below the chest line. Now, after that, move over to the upper part and blend this up into the new armhole, just like this, okay? After that, move over to the side fronts. Now, remember the half an inch mark that we came in from the center fold. Go ahead and connect it into the under bust point, just like I'm doing right now. And then you guys, once you are done with this, you can see that our cups are ready and sitting beautifully well, okay? Now, next thing I want to do is go ahead and input all of my body measurements. So on the bust point line, I'm going to divide my bust circumference by 4, mark it down, and then replace my over busts that intake of 2 inches plus my sewing allowance of 1.5 inches. Now, going down to the under bust points, I'll divide my under bust circumference by 4, mark it out, replace that intake of 2 inches plus 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. Going down to the waistline, I divided my waist circumference by 4, mark it down, replace 2 inches for that intake, and then 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. Now moving down to the hip line, I divided my hip circumference by 4, mark it down, replace that intake of 2 inches plus 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. Now from there, you are going to have to connect all these points together. Okay. And then once you are done with that, should in case you want like a curvy down part, go ahead and go up from the hem by 2 inches and then connect it back to the nipple to nipple point. I hope you guys understand. So guys, from here, let's quickly go ahead and cut out our front pattern. But before that, let me quickly explain something. You guys, you might come across some videos that they connected these two cups together just like this, right at the upper part, right? That is when you have a yoke, okay, for your corset. But for this particular corset, it is not that important. So neglect that. I just connected it to explain something for you guys. Now again, you must have to label your cups, okay? So you can see I have my cup 1 and 2. Please do not forget to label your cups before you cut out your pattern, because as a beginner, if you don't do that, you're likely to confuse yourself which cup is going to which part. So guys, I hope I've been able to explain in detail what you need to know. And with that being said, I'll leave you guys now to watch as I continue to cut out the pattern. So as you can see, our front patterns are ready. Here is the side front and the center front, and here are our two cups. So guys, we are going to move over to the back. Now for the back, I've gone ahead to mark out the top line, the chest line, bust points. I cancelled off the under bust point because we don't need that. I've gone ahead to mark out the waistline as well, and then the hip line, okay? So you can see that I removed 6 inches to go down to the bust point, and 1 inch above the bust point is the chest line, okay? And also I have the waistline 17 inches. Okay, so now I'm trying to tell you that we don't need the under bust point, so we cancelled that. And then I have my hip line 26 inches. I've also gone ahead to mark out the that on the waistline, which I use my nipple to nipple measurement of 4 inches to do that, as you can see, and then remove my dart intake of 1 inch from both sides of the waistline. Now from the hip line, I came up by 2 inches because I don't want my dart for the back to extend to the hip line. Okay, and then I connected my dart legs from the bust point to the 2 inches above the hip line. Okay, so guys, next thing I want to do now is from the chest line, I'm going to come down equally by 1/2 inch, which is going to be my new armhole, as you can see me doing like this. And then after that, I'm going to come over to the bust point and divide my bust circumference by 4, mark it down. Move over to the waistline, divide my waist circumference by 4, mark it down, and replace my dart intake of 2 inches. Okay, now I'll move over to the hip line, divide my hip circumference by 4, mark it down, and then I'll be adding my 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. Okay, now after that, I'll go ahead and connect all the lines. Now guys, if you take a look at the waist, you might see that it is out of shape right now. Okay, don't worry about it. By the time you hold in your dart, it is going to come back to shape. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and determine the neck depth that I want for the back. Okay, so I want my neck depth to be 2 inches below the bust point, so I would mark that and then connect it back to the 1/2 inch below the chest line. So guys, as you can see, I'm trying to connect this to the neck depths, and please, you have to ensure that the side of the back and the side of the front remains the same, just like I did. Okay, now after this, go ahead and tighten the upper part of the back to avoid any form of gaping, just to make sure that the back doesn't gape. Okay, so from the dart leg of that back, I went ahead to come out by 1/2 inch on both sides and connected it back to the waistline. Now this 1/2 inch, which is 1 inch that I just took out, I'm going to replace it back just like this, and then connect it back to the waistline by the side. Can you see? So guys, now that I'm done with this, I'm going to tighten the waistline because although the back does not come with a zipper, I still need my corset to snatch very well. And to do that, I would have to come in from the center fold on the waistline by 1 inch and then connect it back to the neckline and then down to the hip line. Okay, and then afterwards, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So guys, as you can see, we are done with the cutting of this back. So I have my center back and the side back. So I'm going to also use this to indicate that there would be an eyelet right at the back. So without being told, you already know this is a lace up back corset. Okay, I also have my center front and the side back, and here is also the cups. So guys, this is where we'll be ending this tutorial. I hope you've learned something new today. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you did, and if you want to see the sewing part of this tutorial, please endeavor to hit on the subscribe button. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.